Former Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson has remained quiet since the U.S. Department of Justice decided not to indict him on murder charges until now.
And as you can see, even to his last day, Father Hesburgh was able to live by those famous words of God, country, Notre Dame.
St. Joseph County agrees to pay a $270,000 settlement in a federal class action lawsuit that accuses the county of failing to provide arrestees with probable cause hearings within 48 hours.
Coming up here, we can see why the Benton Harbor dispatch has been pretty busy. They have been responding to a number of these, again, slide-offs all throughout the city.
Get your tickets to the Purcell Pavilion. You can come see Flight and the rest of the Harlem Globetrotters again January 24th at 7 o'clock when they take on the Washington Generals.
And Notre Dame football has their first recruit of the 2017 year. It's offensive tackle Dylan Gibbons out of St. Petersburg. He picked ND over Michigan State and Ohio State. He's 6'5", 305 pounds. Family members of the victims who were killed in the 2012 Colorado movie theater massacre shooting take the stand.
Brand new South Bend Performance Center opens up tonight as the South Bend Cubs kick off their season against Bowling Green. First pitch, 7:05.
Since the Midwest League All-Star game last Tuesday, the South Bend Cubs have yet to see themselves in the loss column.
The Southwestern Territory Fire Chief thinks it was drivers off of the highway who were able to spot the flames and then eventually call it in.
We're less than 2 hours away from ringing in the new year, and while we usually look for a fresh start for the new year, well, the Notre Dame men's basketball team, they're looking to carry their hot start into 2015. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mario Gonzalez. Adam has the night off. South Bend Cubs looking to make a push in the second half of the season, and off to a good start with wins in the first 2 games of a 4-game series with the Lake County Captains. And in Game 3, the Cubs are winners by a final of 6-4. Jason Volsler went 1 for 3 with a solo homer. Jake Stinnett went 6 2/3 on the mound to pick up his 3rd win on the year. All but one Cubs player picked up a hit in this one. Now, South Bend is on a 5-game winning streak, and they'll go for the series sweep tomorrow afternoon with first pitch set for 1:30. Now, the Chicago Cubs, they were also in action taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. That game wrapping up not too long ago right here on Fox. Now, Don Roach making his debut. Well, that's one way to help yourself out. Roach with the single to right field, bringing in Starlin Castro to put the Cubs on the board first. But once he got back on the mound, the Redbirds would answer right back. Yadier Molina hits this double, bringing in Jason Hayward. Then it's Xavier Scruggs singling. That's going to bring in Molina, giving the Cardinals a 2-1 lead, and a Matt Carpenter 2-run single puts them up 4-1. St. Louis goes on to win big 8-1. The Cardinals will go for the series sweep when they wrap up this series tomorrow night. Now, the White Sox and Tigers, well, they couldn't get their game in today. That game was rained out in Detroit. The game is going to be made up in a doubleheader on September 21st. Now, the two teams expected to be back in action tomorrow. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mario Gonzalez. Adam has the night off. Since the Midwest League All-Star game last Tuesday, the South Bend Cubs have yet to see themselves in the loss column. But unfortunately, that changed today. Cubs came up just a bit short this afternoon as they tried to pull off the 4-game series sweep against Lake County. The Captains were able to score 4 runs in the bottom of the 8th to come out on top 6-3. Now, Gleyber Torres went 2 for 3 with a solo homer, his 2nd on the year, and an RBI single. Now, with the loss, the Cubs saw their 5-game winning streak come to an end. Now, they have tomorrow off before they're back home on Tuesday night to open up a 3-game series with the Lansing Lugnuts. And the team's going to look a bit different as they add some new faces and say goodbye to a few others. Pitcher Niles native David Garner is moving on after he was promoted. He, along with fellow pitcher Jeremy Knoll, will play for the Advance A Myrtle Beach Pelicans. Now, the Cubs welcome Sam Wilson and Corbin Hoffner from the short-season Eugene Emeralds. Now, Wilson made his debut today, throwing 2 scoreless innings. And after having yesterday's game rained out, it was all sunshine at Comerica Park today for the White Sox-Tiger game. Former Notre Dame star Jeff Samardzija on the mound for Chicago, and it's all White Sox early in this one. Melky Cabrera hits a solo shot, putting the Sox up 2-0. Now, they would eventually build that lead up to 4 until things took a turn. Up 4-1 when the bottom of the 8th, Victor Martinez up with the bases loaded. He drives this one to the gap in right center and clears the bases to tie the game up at 4 apiece. Then in the bottom of the 9th, it's James McCann with the walk-off solo shot. That's 5 unanswered runs for the Tigers as they win this one in dramatic fashion. Detroit takes 2 out of 3 in the series, with yesterday's game set to be made up in September. And coming off of their 50th win on the year last night over the Cubs and building on the best record in baseball, the Cardinals are at a standstill with the Cubs tonight thanks to some rain, lightning, and a severe storm warning at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. This game is in a rain delay in the bottom of the second. Now, there was a tornado spot in a nearby county. If this one does pick up, the Cardinals are going to be looking for the sweep, while the Cubs are trying to snap a 4-game losing streak. Earlier on Fox, you got the chance to see quite the finish as the U.S. Senior Open wrapped up. Now, going into the final round, you had Bernhard Langer and Jeff Maggart tied at 5 under for the lead. But there were 8 other golfers just 1 stroke behind them. In the end, it's Maggart who puts himself ahead of the rest. Here he is on the second hole. This is from just under 50 feet out. And you guessed it, he sinks the long birdie putt. Now check out this tee shot here on 14. Sets himself up to make another one of his 6 birdies on the afternoon. He was finding his stroke today. He's got his family waiting on 18 for him to seal the deal. And he does just that with this par, finishing at 10 under. He beats out Colin Montgomery by 2 strokes and brings home his 2nd career senior major title. Now, after winning the pole yesterday, it was A.J. Allmendinger at the front for the Toyota Save More 350 at Sonoma Raceway. Now, joining him in the front line was Jeff Gordon, who was racing at Sonoma for the last time as a full-time Sprint Cup racer. Now, Gordon would go on to finish in 16th place, but your winner, Kyle Busch. In the end, he beats out his older brother, as right here he passes up Jimmy Johnson. Now Kurt Busch, who finished 2nd. Kyle bringing home the checkered flag. South Bend's Ryan Newman cracked the top 10 with a 9th place finish. That's win number 30 for Busch in his career.
We led a lot of laps today. We qualified 2nd, finished 2nd. I know it doesn't show much, but it's definitely a statement type of weekend for us.
Great pit work by my team. All the guys on pit road did a great job today. And I can't say enough about this victory and my team, everybody that does so much to pull for me, that helped me and you know, prayed for me to get me back in this race car as they get me here today was quite special.
And former Notre Dame standout Skylar Diggins in the Tulsa Shock hosting the Seattle Storm. Diggins and the Shock win this one 93-89. She finishes with a game-high 28 points. Another Notre Dame star on the court was Jewel Lloyd, who finished with 21 points for the Storm in the loss. Now, after taking care of business in this one, Diggins has her team on an 8-game winning streak. Now, Blackhawk fans everywhere are probably still celebrating, and with great reason. 3 Stanley Cups in 6 years, that'll do that. Now, through the draft, the team will try to add some pieces for the future, and that includes taking Dennis Gilbert Jr. with the 91st pick. But before he can put on a Blackhawks uniform, he's actually going to be taking the ice for the Notre Dame hockey team next season. Now, no doubt Irish fans are still celebrating as the Notre Dame men's basketball team is bringing home their first ACC tournament title. This coming off a 6-12 record in their first season in the ACC. Now, with the conference tournament under their belt, you know this team is hungry as they set their sights on making their next run in the NCAA tournament. Now, going in as the 3 seed, the Irish will take on Northeastern in the first round. It was an exciting weekend for high school basketball teams throughout Indiana as they aim to bring home a regional title. Unfortunately, things didn't go so well for the boys here in Michiana. St. Joe couldn't take care of business. The Indians lost to the Griffith Panthers. Now, LaVille was looking for their first ever regional in school history. The Lancers also came up a bit short in their bid for a title. And making our way over to Michigan, these teams are getting ready to play for their regionals. Now, New Buffalo will square up against Constantine, and that game will take place in Waterville Elite. Tomorrow night, Edwardsburg will take on Benton Harbor in their first round of regionals. Now, the Eddies and Tigers, they're more than ready for this matchup. I wonder if the Irish fans have gotten their voices back. The Notre Dame football team pulled out a dramatic win over a powerhouse SEC program in their Music City Bowl win over LSU. For senior kicker Kyle Brinza, there was almost no better way to script the ending to his career, kicking the game-winning field goal from 32 yards out as time expired and ending to a season that had its ups and downs for the senior.
Has been interesting, though, is there are certain parts where we were driving, hardly any snowfall. Kind of like Joe said, it was starting to ease up. For example, here in South Bend, we don't have any flakes falling right now. Then we can drive a half a mile, and then the conditions can just change, where then we've got our visibility dropping. So that is definitely something to keep an eye out for. But again, so far, traffic moving smoothly. St. Joe County has reported a couple accidents towards their southern part. That was near State Road 931 and State Road 4. No one injured in those accidents. But aside from that, they have haven't reported, again, any on the bypass. And now if you are driving on a road that hasn't been plowed, it's going to look something like this. So this was Tom and I driving here off of this road. Now these are the tracks that we made. So as you look down, you can see we're looking probably at about 3 inches of snow. So again, those main roads have been plowed.
And obviously there's going to be the big color change from the Silverhawks to the South Bend Cubs. You're going to also see some brand new faces on the roster. But again, those are just some of the changes that you're going to be seeing here at Four Winds Field. And to tell us more about this, I'm joined by Joe Hart, the president of the South Bend Cubs. Now, Joe, ever since we got news that the South Bend Cubs were going to be an affiliate of the Chicago Cubs, how much work has gone into leading up to today?
Now, the fire has been put out, and there weren't any injuries. Now, the fire chief also added that the fire was put out only about 30 minutes after they arrived on scene. Keep in mind, too, when you are getting on and off on these ramps, even when the roads have been plowed, we are still seeing a few issues around those ramps. For instance, when we got off at the State Road 23 exit, we could not see where that exit lane was.
Yeah, alley-oops, behind-the-back passes, taunting players, fun with the crowd. You can all see it live January 24th when the Harlem Globetrotters take on the Washington Generals. One of those guys you can see live in action, Flight Time Lang. Now, Flight, I'm sure a lot of people at home have got to be wondering, the nickname, how'd it come about?
When we were in Niles, we saw all their roads on Main Street there completely snow-covered. The snow was coming down. As we were leaving Niles and got onto the US 31 bypass, as we were crossing the state line, then the snow stopped. Both lanes completely visible there on the bypass, and it was like that for a couple miles. Then the moment we crossed over the bridge heading towards Berrien Springs, again still on US 31 heading north, it was a complete change. Snow was falling down, it was blowing right into the car, visibility went down, road were snow covered, traffic started moving much slower. So again, it has just been almost a day and night difference as you can just move. And even coming up here, we can see why the Benton Harbor dispatch has been pretty busy. They have been responding to a number of these, again, slide-offs all throughout the city. Now, they have reported no injuries on those, but when the crews did make their switch from the night crew to the morning crew, which happened at 6 o'clock this morning, in just a 50-minute time span, they had reported 10 slide-offs around the Benton Harbor area.
Yeah, we're going to train you to be a little globetrotter.
Right.
Go off the knee.
Off the knee, so behind the back, off the knee.
Off the elbow.
Off the elbow.
That's simple. Under the leg. Off the head. All right.
And all that work, I mean, it's paid off, and it's showing. They won a big-time state award for the first time in Penn's history down in Kokomo. They also had a strong finish down in nationals at a national competition in Missouri. And we are joined by a couple of those Penn Robotic team members who made that happen.
I've always said life is nothing but decades. Your first 2 decades, you get a credential. And then that third decade, from 20 to 30, you got to make your dream become a reality.
Digger Phelps made his dream become a reality at the age of 29. That dream, to coach basketball at Notre Dame. In his time there, he'd go on to lead the men's team to their only Final Four appearance in school history. Then once the 20 years were up, the next chapter started with ESPN. It was fellow coach and friend Jim Valvano's passing that led him to take the position. He told ESPN from the beginning what they'd be getting.
I'm not going to scream and yell like Jimmy and Dick did. I just got to be who I am, which obviously turned out.
After announcing his retirement from ESPN, Phelps made his way back to Indiana.
Coach Phelps has lived at his home in South Bend for 43 years, and he doesn't plan on leaving the area anytime soon.
One of the reasons he won't leave, he wants to make South Bend a better and safer place. He calls it coaching the streets, and this is part of his next 20-year vision. He says crime in the area can be traced to a child's education.
I still think you can target these gang kids, so to speak, or any of these guys who are now young men, because they drop out of school because they can't do the math, they can't do the science.
He says with an education, kids will learn they have options, and those options will keep them from making bad decisions. As for Phelps himself, we may not have seen the last of him on TV.
Now that I've given up college basketball with ESPN, that doesn't mean I've given up college basketball.
Bringing this to the fair, it's a part of history that we should never forget.
The traveling memorial brings remains of the Twin Towers, gear from the emergency responders, and the names of those lost in the 9/11 attacks. Captain Don Showalter was instrumental in bringing this to the fair.
We're all one unit, and we always stand behind each other. It's just remarkable, and I'm proud and honored to do this.
As part of the opening ceremony, Showalter stood side by side with 4 New York City firefighters who responded on that day.
Oh, I had to fight back the tears. I mean, it's just something so remarkable.
And one by one, these New York firefighters shared their stories.
I was off duty and I responded from home. When the planes came down, we responded to Manhattan on the 9/11 site.
Adams, who is now retired after 28 years of service, travels with the memorial.
It's an honor to even come here all over the country to present this museum, to show people what happened and bring the memory of the fallen brothers and sisters.
They say the memorial is meant to honor police, firefighters, and military members who have made the ultimate sacrifice.
Those that are Those that are current serving, I have a son that's a Marine, and it just means a lot.
From the Elkhart County Fairgrounds, Mario Gonzalez, Fox 28 News.
We just want to welcome Mayor Pete home.
As South Bend welcomes back Mayor Pete Buttigieg,
I'm happy he's coming back safe and sound. I'm glad he's getting back into the job. I'm very excited that he, served our country and did so well over there, and that he's coming home in one piece.
I mean, it's awesome to know that he is willing to go fight and leave this, but it's good to have him back.
we take a look at what the city of South Bend faced in his absence, such as downtown losing power.
Now, please be careful. We've had no instances so far.
Councilman Henry Davis Jr. in his OWI arrest.
He is innocent until proven guilty.
Multiple call-ins, all part of an attempt to stop the gang violence in the city.
Groups are gangs.
In short, a lot has happened while Mayor Pete has been gone.
We've had some different challenges, but you know something? With Pete being here, I believe that some of those challenges would have occurred too, because of the fact that, the team has been in place. But with our mayor being here, I think we can take us to another level.
Mayor Pete also returns on the very day South Bend says goodbye to the Silverhawks and welcomes the Cubs.
I think he's coming back to some good momentum, and I think he'll find it a different place than even when he left. So I'm really positive about the whole thing.
And now it's time for him to once again make the South Bend citizens his top priority.
I'm really appreciative of his service that he has given to our country over these past 6 months. And now that he's back, he can get a few moments of rest. And I say moments, only moments, because we have a full agenda awaiting him.
Chills, definitely. Butterflies.
Surreal. It's definitely surreal. Proud and honored to be up there.
Just a big relief.
After 20 weeks of training, these men and women graduated from the Fire Academy. 3 of them will serve LaPorte.
As a member of the LaPorte Fire Department.
The other 5 will join South Bend Fire. For some of the graduates, they're following in their family's footsteps.
My grandfather was actually on a Michigan City Fire Department.
Some of the first things I can remember were going to visit my grandpa, who pinned my badge at the firehouse. He was a LaPorte firefighter for 22 years. Ever since then, I've wanted to be a firefighter.
For another grad, it was to serve his hometown.
Born and raised on the west side. This is where I want to raise my family and start my career and let my career flourish.
Regardless of the reason, they all understand the dangers that come with the job, but say they look past them.
I wanted to be a part of being able to help my community, and there are risks, but I think it's worth it.
I felt this is kind of a calling. I was always drawn to the fire service. I've never really, gave it any thought. It was just something I always felt kind of compelled to do.
In front of the South Bend and LaPorte fire chiefs and mayors, they leave the training academy as sworn firefighters.
Really now is just the beginning for us, so kind of get to see where we go from here.
For some, that starts with their first shift tomorrow morning. In South Bend, Mario Gonzalez, Fox 28 News.